Hello, welcome or welcome back to Sapling Tarot and to another series, another episode of The Cards We're Dealt, my series talking to fellow tarot readers about tarot and neurodivergence. We are kicking off this new series with one of my favourite people. I really tried to edit this one down, but it is an absolute mammoth. It is with the wonderful, the glorious Sylvie from Tarot Magpie, tarot genius, tarot lab scientist extraordinaire. I will let them introduce themselves.
Yes, hi, I'm Sylvie. I'm Tarot Magpie on the internet, on YouTube, on Instagram, and I primarily make content for tarot nerds. Really, at the end of the day, is what I'm doing. I like getting into the tarot, and that's what I talk about. And I try and collect people who also like to think the same way.
And you do a fantastic job of it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, what a lovely community of tarot nerds and people who are really prepared to just like get in the weeds about
so much fun
about the system.
I'm like truly finding my people.
So good. I remember the first time I watched one of your videos, and I think you had a very lesbian manicure on, and I was just like, I see you. I see you. And then you were like getting into like the really nerdy stuff, and I was like, hi, my people, right here on the internet. This is very exciting. So how do you identify in terms of neurodivergence, but also in life, if you want to go into that?
For sure. So neuro-wise, I don't, because I'm not officially diagnosed with anything. I've been like peer reviewed, but I tend to it depends who I'm talking to, honestly. Like if I'm talking to people who get it, then I'll be like, yeah, I'm very clearly autistic and so on. But otherwise, I think I get away with just feeling or like acting a little bit like ditzy, and people are just like, oh, she's herself.
Yeah.
So like I do identify as autistic. That's something that I would seek a diagnosis for, and there's maybe some like ADHD in there, but I'm not so fussed about, at this point in my life, I'm not so worried about getting specific like diagnostic labels, because I'm very lucky to be in a position where I can sort of organize my own time and my schedule and my life. So that's not really a priority at the moment. And I do feel a little bit of a way about like claiming diagnostic labels that I've not been officially given, which, you know, is a whole thing of its own.
Yeah, but you know, my feelings about that are very pro self and certainly peer diagnostic things, and that there are a whole mess of reasons to not go down the formal diagnostic route unless you absolutely have to.
Lots of things that are off-putting about it, and like I say, I'm not in a position where I need a diagnosis for like protected characteristic reasons, or like I'm not in university when I could use that to get like extra accommodations or anything. So it's just not, it would be just for the sake of having the label, which would be maybe nice, but I feel valid enough around the people who I care about and who care about me, and like that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Well, certainly in terms of the like, so things with ADHD, like you can get like medication and whatever, but with autism, it's much more of a kind of social diagnosis thing anyway, of giving you the confidence to state your needs to the people around you and the vocabulary to communicate these sorts of things with people anyway. Like, I remember when I got my diagnosis, I got invited to a series of 6 group therapy sessions called Living Well on the Spectrum in the function room above a pub in Shepton Mallet, of all places. And I was just like, oh, so you're going to get a whole bunch of like newly diagnosed autistic people in a room and see if we have shit to say to each other, i.e. that sounds like a barrel of laughs.
Yeah, that sounds really well informed and Definitely. A good idea.
Yeah, that's being led by a neurotypical person and just like shove people into a room together and go, you're all autistic, you'll get on.
Yeah.
And so like that was the nearest thing to treatment that was offered to me, and I was just like, lol, I have a full-time job, you must be joking. It was at like 2:00 on Wednesdays or something, and I was like, great, cheers, that's helpful. So yeah, no, I absolutely, you know, I think that I'm just like, I agree with, I respect, I think you're doing the right thing. You don't need my validation of your choices and stuff, but I'm just like, yeah, fair fucking play, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't need it. I don't need a I don't need an autism diagnosis. Again, like, I'm 30, what are they going to do? It's not like I'm in school and like they might give me some ill-advised CBT again, which
we love. This is a CBT hate account.
I'm having a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and I'm going to ask to change my antidepressants, and I'm just really hoping she's not going to try and force some more CBT on me, because it's so deeply invalidating and I do not want it.
And there's so much research around how it just doesn't really work for autistic people as well. So
and
it's
actually, ironically, that's where it might be useful to have an autism diagnosis.
Yeah, but no, they'll still give it to autistic people. They'll just be like, true. You know, you then take the paperwork and they go, yeah, well, it's still what we offer you. My favourite thing though is that CBT is also an acronym used in the kink community for cock and ball torture, and so that's what I always think of whenever I think about the NHS. Putting everyone up for 6 weeks of CBT, and I'm just like, you know what?
Which, to be fair, also wouldn't do very much for me.
No, but it could be more useful. It just fucking Jesus. But yeah, no, CBT. Boo. Unless it has helped you, CBT was what got me my autism diagnosis. I was so bad at it that the therapist said, "Have you ever heard of autism?" And I was like, oh, it's going that well, is it? So in that way, it was very helpful for me, but not in the way it's supposed to be.
It got you somewhere productive.
Yeah, and then eventually I was in the mental health services so long that I made my way back to my first ever therapist, who was a CBT therapist, but she was now an EMDR therapist because she had also realised that CBT is bullshit. So it took me 10 years, but I made my way back to the same therapist, and she was just like, oh, really?
But you're both
sorry
like with this level or something.
Yeah, just sorry about that. That was probably horrible for you. And I was like, asking me to describe my emotions before I had any vocabulary for them. Yeah, it was challenging.
Yeah, we love that. My favourite memory from the CBT that I've done was online, which was even worse than talking to a real person. It was like online. And my favourite thing that I have a screenshot of is it was like a infographic-y thing with like words for emotions, but the pictures were pumpkins. I'll have to find it and I'll send it to you because I've saved it because it's just so absurd. And I'm like, do I feel like an anxious pumpkin today or a sad pumpkin today?
Every day I wake up and feel like an anxious and sad pumpkin. But obviously you can't be
also, this was during the pandemic, and like everybody's an anxious pumpkin during the pandemic. The reason it was all online was because nobody could go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then I had like my own personal life dramas happening, and I'm like, I'm always a sad and anxious pumpkin. That's the issue.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
I can't see how it would be helpful for, and like I'm sure there are people, like disclaimers, whatever. But I can see how it would maybe be helpful for somebody who has like a, what's it called, acute period of like anxiety.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you've been living with your brain and it's always been the way it's always been, like no amount of breathing exercises, like you've tried that, you've definitely tried that. My mum taught me, those like body scan meditations and like breathing exercises, like because I've always been a chronically bad sleeper since I popped out of the womb. So I've been having all this from my mum from when I was like 4 years old, and like it didn't help me then, it's not going to help me now.
No, and it's kind of offensive at the point that it's just like, you tried meditation and yoga. Just like, do you think would I be here?
Do you think I've not considered that?
Yeah, like, oh, I'm a bit
with everything else that I've told you.
Yeah, with my paperwork. Slam! Like, just do you not? And yeah, the acute thing, and also people who... An acute thing that's in the past as well. So I'm anxious about stuff because this discrete thing happened that is now over. And then you think about CBT stuff within either having a brain that is just always like this, but also within stressful situations and, difficult home life or grief or structural societal oppression and systems of oppression and all of that stuff. And you just go, well, it's useless because it's like, oh, you're thinking negatively about this thing that is negative. And
that is objectively a bad thing. Because a lot of what I was talking about when I was having the CBT was because my mum had died like the previous year, and it's like, that's a sad bad thing that's never going to get better. And I don't think it's weird that I'm sad about it, and I also don't want to feel better about it, like pretty permanent state. She's not going to that would be weird if she came back. Like,
yeah, that would also be...
It's always going to be sad, and I'm always going to be sad about it, and I don't want to not be sad about it.
Yes, yeah.
It's actually everything else.
one.
The grief wasn't even the thing I was really there for. It was just the thing that, like, I tell people, like, oh, there's a pandemic on and my mum's died, and they're like, great, let's give you some treatment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not actually, not that it wasn't bad, but, you know, I'd been struggling since forever.
Yeah.
And I was like, what I need help with is, like, living inside my brain and, like, figuring out how to function.
I think going through really, really difficult stuff, that I remembered so vividly the feeling of, like, I need the world to stop while I, like, deal with this, but you can't. And that's, like, it's something about that I think about, like, the autistic adult experience of so much of the autistic diagnostic process is about children, but then you diagnose an adult and it's just like, well, can you do these things? And you go, yeah, because I'm 30. Like,
Yeah.
I had to figure it out. And, you know, and I've not had people, like, hand-holding me the whole way through. I've had to figure out ways of managing these things, because the world doesn't stop and wait for you to catch up. The world keeps turning, you keep getting older, the sun, you know, the days go by and you have to figure it out. And that is a crushing realisation. And you can be like the deep desire of, you know, stop, I want to get off kind of thing.
Oh my God.
But you understand it. It's like the black and white thinking being such a thing of autism. Yeah, but if you're an autistic adult, you've had to live through X number of decades of realising that it's not black and white.
Yeah.
And actually a lot of neurotypical culture will tell you that things are much more binary or much more black and white, much more easy to categorise. And I'm just here being like, and I'm the rigid fucking thinker? Are you joking? I've lived a life of going, actually, you can't put anything tightly in a box and it's deeply stressful, but we do it. We get on. And yeah, the having to be a human whilst doing other things. Like, it's the ultimate multitasking of, like, grieving and being a person, trauma processing and getting up every day and brushing your fucking teeth or eating or something.
No, and I think, I mean, this isn't news to you, obviously, but the concept of, like, being a person is so like productivity based, is so capitalism, culture, neurotypical, like, little goal, which nobody's very good at. No. Even people who are, you know, neurotypical and have all the easiness in the world, like, nobody's very good at that all the time, because it's not possible to function like that in a human body. Yeah, it just makes everything, like, 3 times as hard.
Absolutely. And I think it's like, I think I've kind of come to a realisation recently, and I think that there's so much of that, of the neurotypical culture being capitalism. And so the whole concept of executive dysfunction, or executive function being the skills you need to be an executive, is like that's pure capitalism. That's like fucking severance level capitalism. it's so that, and just like, so what kind of neurotypical culture would have been pre-capitalism, we have no concept of.
Yeah, there's no way to even imagine
thing.
that.
So it's, I mean, you're absolutely right that these things are, that they're sides of the same, I mean, white supremacy and patriarchy, and they're all part of this multifaceted monster that we're all dealing with and all being smushed under. And it's so, just like this big boulder rolling around getting absolutely everyone, because no one can really survive under that apart from, you know, like 10 fucking people.
Because I look back on the before so many things, like before the pandemic, before my mum died, before I was doing what I'm doing now, it was like the before times. And I'm like, I had my, like, full-time job, I kept the, like, flat tidy, and I did, like, the laundry and the washing up, and I had, like, phases where I'd go to the gym because I could only ever keep it up for a couple of months and then I'd be, like, too exhausted to live. And I'm like, I did that, but I was also completely miserable.
Yeah.
I was so... And there are many reasons, like the pre-grief, there were many reasons that I was very depressed. But, like, I was just so deeply unhappy and didn't feel like a person, didn't feel like I was doing any... Like, I just wanted the world to stop, like you were saying. Like, I just wanted everything to stop so I could, like, take a fucking breath and not be... Like, I was just constantly playing catch-up, it felt like. I was trying so hard to, like, be a person in the way that I thought people were supposed to be. In the way that, like, society tells you people are supposed to be. I was just trying so hard and I never felt like I got there, and I was just completely miserable.
Yeah, no, that sense of playing catch up,
Yeah.
the kind of hamster on the wheel thing, like that's so relatable. I remember, I might have said this to you before, like I remember reading a Devon Price essay. It came up on my phone and it was just the Substack title of, it's something like "You Might Never Recover from Autistic Burnout." And it was an essay kind of detailing 3 different instances in their life about different points of burnout and the skill loss and skill regression and stuff like that. And I think about living that life, that sort of everything that society has told you need to be. And I think about doing that now, and I think I actually don't think I could do that anymore. And part of that is quite possibly like skill regression, skill loss and stuff, but I also think my self-worth is too high now. Like, I don't know if I could put myself back in that position. I mean, I'd just be fucking fuming all the time in a way that I wasn't. I was sad, and I was just like, I was kind of empty.
It was all
out. Yeah, but I'd just be fucking raging the whole time. Yeah. And like no one would employ me.
I would not be a pleasure to have in class.
Yes, no longer a pleasure to have in class. Oh my god, the character evolution.
That's where it started. That's where it bloody started. I went to a grammar school, so we were probably a good 50% of my school was probably some kind of neurodivergent. And it's actually really funny because the friends that I spent the other weekend with, they're my friends from school, and we've stayed friends. It's been like 15, 20 years now, and we're now all either self or officially or peer diagnosed as like autistic and or ADHD, all 4 of us. It's very validating to actually see them all again, because I'm like, oh, you're my people.
Yeah.
And I could just be completely myself, which is so nice. But I've lost the original point that I was making. But yeah, that's where it started, with school and having to like compete and all being held to a standard, because, and I don't know if it would have been better or worse if I'd been in a like what's the word for like, they test you to put you in. It's not self-selecting, but it's something.
Like, like entrance exams. I don't know what you call.
Yeah, I know there's a word. Though. But yeah, I don't know if it would have been better or worse if I'd been in a more like, I guess, like varied, normal school. But because we were all like of a standard, because we'd been tested to get in, we were all held to such a high standard, and we were all trained to like pass exams and like perform a certain way. And then also we were an all-girls school, which was like a special kind of social... It was kind of a crash course in like social masking in a not good way that I wouldn't recommend.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, like that's for sure where it started, and where the like ability to mask quite so well came from, because nobody makes it to like adulthood undiagnosed without having been masking. I mean, I'm sure there are people who, again, like caveats. There's certainly people who just, the system has failed completely.
Yeah, and like, groups of people that just don't ever receive a diagnosis, they just get labelled as like trouble and stuff like that. So I absolutely see what you mean. Like I didn't go to I went to a very normal like state school thing, but I was the like gifted and talented.
I was gifted and talented in primary school.
And it's just that like kind of being proud of. I can't afford my therapist anymore, so I have switched to journaling. I'm back on the journaling train. And I was writing in my journal the other day about how fucked off I am with all of the people who put my self-worth in things that I couldn't control, like being clever and being like thin and being pretty and stuff like that, and the fact that was where like all of my childhood's self-worth, and then of course into adulthood.
Well, you've just unlocked something there.
But yeah, so the gifted and talented child too, I was talking about this in a workshop the other day. It was about neurodivergence and shame and spiral time and stuff, of like what I consider the gifted child to like mediocre adult pipeline of just like crashing disappointment every day of my life, that I'm not like saving the world.
Yeah.
Because people kind of had me believe that was sort of what I was going to do, but then I crashed and burned by the age of 15. And so the fact that I have now doubled that is wild to me, and I'm proud of myself every day that I didn't see myself getting past 15, so the fact that I've done it again, I've had a whole other 15 years, I mean, winning. I'm all on bonus time at this point. But it's like, the idea that your self-worth was put in stuff that you had no control over is bullshit.
That's a very good point, and not something I'd like articulated to myself in that way, because I'm going to be noodling on that for a while.
I apologise. It's a big one, but also I think it gives a bit of room for what would I be proud of myself now? Proud of myself for now? What am I proud of myself for now? And like the things that I have control over and the things that I can do, and that are active things rather than just some passive kind of lap of the gods type roll of the dice thing of birth. And so it's but I think that it's a challenging one, and I think I've been the same with like any friends that I still have from childhood. Like they're all neurodivergent. They're all fucking weird in the most delightful way possible. Yeah. And people that I lost touch with have all gone on to live much more kind of normative lives. I'm like, and that's kind of why we lost touch. That's not that they're bad people. It's just and also people that kind of sort of picked on me at school. I think about the survival mechanism of that, of being like, I was fucking weird. And the survival mechanism is to distance yourself from the odd ones.
Yeah, like, I don't like it, but I get it.
No. Yeah. Like I understand how, like, looking at the lives they've gone on to have now, I'm like, it makes a lot of sense that you were not going to be looking to be different or to be associated with anything that was different. You kind of wanted to be in like a little bit in that teenage individualism, wanting to be original, kind of quirky thing, but nothing that was too different, because that's dangerous. And then some of us can't help it.
Yeah, and they can like, and I know there's like literally been studies on this, but people can sniff out autism. Oh yeah. Nobody can sniff out autism like a teenage girl, I swear to God.
Oh my God,
that was what was so hard, I think. One of the things that was so hard is like, obviously I was undiagnosed. I thought I was trying so hard to be normal and to fit in like the normal teenage ways of wanting to fit in, and also just like why is everything so hard for me? What's wrong with me? I'm clearly not trying hard enough, etc. And so I'd be picked on, but not for any like real reason. They could just sense that there's something wrong, and so I get to be the target of it, and like that was hard to build any kind of self-confidence after school, because it took me a long time, I think, to realize that there was actually, not that there was nothing wrong with me, but like I couldn't help it. I didn't deserve it any more than nobody deserves to be bullied, but I didn't do anything to deserve it, and there was nothing I could have done to make that different.
There was actually nothing that you could have done,
because I bloody tried.
Like bullying, and then like I have that with like family kind of like child abusey stuff, that I was so convinced from such a young age that if I'd done something differently, then the outcome would have been different. So like if I'd not said that thing, or if I'd been more polite, or if I'd been smaller and shrink. And definitely the same goes for school, of like if I just kept my mouth shut, and then I go look back on it, I'm just like, your mouth was already shut. You already weren't saying anything. Like, how much less of a person could you have been at that point? But then I had a therapist when I was like, I don't know, probably like 19, 20 or something, and she used the magic phrase, which was to point out how kind of arrogant it is to believe that you had control over any of these things. And that was the perfect word for me, because I was always so afraid of being arrogant. I was so, like, to the point of if anyone said that I was confident, I heard it as arrogant and heard it as, you need to stop doing that. Just because I was so terrified of that. Because, again, of the shrinking and the wanting to be smaller and smaller and less. But, just the idea that I could have controlled any of those outcomes, given that it's all based on, like, other people's bullshit, other people's baggage, other people's choices, other people's interpretations of situations. And like the same for that school bully thing, of like, we couldn't have done, they were always going to do it. And also that thing, if it hadn't been us, it would have been somebody else. So like it's still, no one would have, what, like the net thing, it wouldn't have been any different really, probably, even if we had done things differently. And I think that's a huge thing, that it's like, no, they were always going to sniff it out. Yeah, like you say, they've done those tests that people are just generally negative towards autistic people, and they can't explain why.
So fast.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's kind of alarming. Just moving through the world, being like, oh, there's always going to be something like a little bit kind of, it's almost like the uncanny valley type thing, there's just something a little bit off that will make people suspicious of us.
Yeah, and because I work from home, I work for myself, I don't interact with a lot of people who are not like my partner or my friends who know me and are also some kind of something, and so get it. But sometimes I'll go to like a wedding, or I'll be introduced to people, like if I like bump into people my partner works with or whatever, and I can just like tell that they can tell because I'm like, oh, I'm not doing it right, whatever it is. And it's at this point, like I don't take it personally, but it is always, it's kind of funny in a strange way to like notice it and be like, oh yeah, no, I'm in quite like a bubble in my everyday life because I can be, and that's great and it's good. Then sometimes I'll meet strangers and I'm like, oh no, there is something off.
Yeah, and I think like I wonder sometimes about, because my life is very similar, and I wonder if I'm kind of de-skilling myself. But then I think about sort of, we talk a lot more now about our nervous systems and about, you know, regulating and soothing them and stuff, and I think about the level of kind of nervous system activation that I was living in just like all the time. And so yeah, okay, I wasn't necessarily more skilled, but I was more used to being around different sorts of people. Yeah, so it didn't strike me as unusual when I came into it, but it still stressed me out all the time, and so I was just living in that state of stress all the time. And so now I just have peaks of it when I interact with it, but it's like it never lessened over time. I was always up here. You
just got used to it.
Yeah, and so it's not really that I've de-skilled myself, it's actually that I've made my life more peaceful by not interacting with that all the time, because it wasn't a skill that I was gaining, I was just always having a terrible time.
Yeah, actually that's a really good point, because I've thought of this, I'm like, oh, I don't know how to talk to like strangers anymore, I don't know how to talk to people not en masse, but you know, people in a general way. And I was like, actually that's a really important, and I did know, and when I think about it, it was a lot of the time I was learning scripts because I was like working in insurance. So there was literally like, if somebody called me, it was about a claim and there was literally a process to take them through. I was never having like jump scare conversations. Yeah. There was always a script to follow. Like when I worked in a pub, it's like, okay, so sometimes they'd ask me questions about, like that was weird. We'd have conversations and that was stressful, but usually it's like, no, they want a drink and I know how to do that. And there's a process to follow and there's a script to follow, which I feel like shouldn't have been a realization. That should be quite obvious. That reason number 312 that I've always been the way that I am.
I think we think that other people must be doing that all the time, and that's how everyone experiences life and social interactions and stuff, and that it doesn't occur to us. It's like so there was a Andrax toilet paper ad campaign years ago about, do you scrunch or fold? And so it was the idea that some people wipe their ass with like a piece of toilet paper that's been folded, and some people wipe their ass inexplicably with like a scrunch thing. And it's like for people that wear bras, it's some people fasten them at the front and then swizzle them around, and some people fasten them behind their back, and you never know the other half of the population exist until you for some reason have a conversation about it, or you see someone do it and you go, what the fuck, you're an alien. What is this? You just assume that the way you do it is normal.
Yeah,
because
that's
kind of how humans are. We assume. And that's part of, you know, when people talk about kids being so resilient, it's just like, we shouldn't be testing that. But also it's just because their normal is their normal, and they assume that everyone's like that. And it's then when you get older and you go to the fucking pub and you have a conversation about something and it all goes silent. And you go, did everyone's family not do that? Yeah. Well, am I the only person that scrunches the toilet paper before they wipe their ass, or whatever the thing is? I remember the first time I saw someone fasten the bra at the front and swizzle it round, and I was just, captivated. Also gay, so, you know, if there was boobs involved, of course I was already thrown off, but I just remember being like, that feels like a lot of work. And then some people being like, I can't believe you can do something behind your back. And I'm just like, have you ever tied a ponytail? Like, you can do things without looking. We don't know the other people exist until we are confronted with it. And the social script thing, I mean, it was, yeah, I don't know when I first found out that some people don't do that. They can just have off-the-cuff conversations with people.
Simply could not be me. I have this doctor's appointment tomorrow and I have a list of notes of what I'm going to say because I need to have a script.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, so for the last, like, 18 months or something, I'm not doing it at the moment, but I've had the same phone call that I need to make at 9 o'clock every Monday morning. And I've been doing it for 18 months, and I have it written down in the notes app of my phone, and I read it verbatim every week. Nothing about it changes. Nothing about the conversation changes. I say the same thing regardless of what they say to me. I just barrel on through with my notes, and that's it. And I couldn't do it any differently. Mostly because it's like first thing in the morning, but also like, why deviate? It works. Hello, I'm calling from such and such a service, phoning to know if such and such is in today. This is their name, this is their, like, identification, whatever. Thank you. Like,
yeah.
What else do I need to say? But every day, 18
To the point
months.
that it really throws me off when somebody does not respond to my script. Or they ask me a different question, and I'm like, I now need to reset, actually. And we need to start this interaction again.
No. Just unacceptable, irredeemable, just, you've ruined everything.
Just hang up.
Yeah, just that's sorry, I've got to go. I've got to leave. But like, I have my like patter for receiving groceries and stuff, and it's really funny if someone overhears it, because it's a different driver every time, and so they don't realise I'm saying the same thing.
Right, yeah.
But if someone overhears me, they know that I sound really like, you know, casual and personable, and I'm saying these things, but I'm saying the same things I say every week, no matter who it is, no matter what the weather's like, no matter what it is, I'm saying the same thing. Really not defeating these like robot allegations of just, you know, you put the little drive
I feel
in.
like it's efficient. Which also is not defeating the robot allocation, but I value efficiency.
Yeah.
And the delivery driver doesn't really care what you say. They're also probably saying the same thing to every person that they see.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, and just being friendly, being nice, being kind, you know, that's all. The only thing that you can do that is going to improve their day is like by not being rude.
Yeah.
And so it's like by just being nice. It doesn't matter if you say the same thing every time.
Mm-hmm. And in that situation, it like is the thought that counts. Because you're like, oh, I'm doing the social thing of like saying hi and being friendly and being nice so that you know that I appreciate what you're doing and this is a nice interaction. And like, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's allowed.
And the efficiency in that is the kind of the improving of the person. Like that's the efficient thing is to make it nice for everyone involved.
Exactly. It doesn't really matter if you're saying something new and different each time, because the net result is the same.
Yeah, exactly. That's you get it. But to be observed in that is very funny.
Yeah, it's like, oh no.
A peek behind the curtain. I'm not actually this like chill and whatever person. I've had so many people that haven't known me very well call me very chill, and I'd be like, that's adorable. Thank you. This has been carefully curated over a number of decades and calibrated all the time. Just slightly fine-tuning the whole thing. Yeah, it's always so... I feel like the word validating gets like thrown around an awful lot now, but it is really validating to talk to people that get it so like deeply and fundamental, and that don't think it's weird as well. You're just like, or that kind of accept that maybe it's weird going by like a normal standard, but to us
It's weird, but it's not bad.
Yes, weird but not bad is definitely.
And I mean, at this point in my life, I simply have to own being weird.
Yeah.
Because I'm, especially like, because, yeah, it's like I'm self-employed talking about tarot on the internet.
Yeah.
And not even in the way that if most people have like a passing familiarity with tarot, they assume that I'm doing like, you know, like the pick a card readings. And I'm like, no, I get nerdy about it. And I talk about
I've
like...
somehow made it even weirder.
Yeah, I'm extra weird about it, especially because like, yeah, my partner works in like a very normal job. And when I have to interact with their co-workers occasionally, I'm like, I need to come up with like an elevator pitch for people who are being politely interested but have no idea, like no context for it.
Yeah.
But what was my point? Yeah, I have to own being weird because I I sit at home and talk to a camera about tarot cards.
It's
and
great.
That's my job.
And the thing is, but also like the joy that you bring to other people's lives by people finding you and having that experience that I said about me having of being like, oh, my people, I'm not alone. You know, like we talk about sort of, you know, like fun, frivolous things, the kinship thing of, oh, there are people that are interested in things that I'm interested in, particularly if no one in your like IRL life has any interest, then that is huge. I think for people, if there's like no one that you can talk to about things that you care about in your life, then that is really sad. And that kind of self-censorship thing of not talking about the thing that you really care about, and so then finding people that want to talk about it is so life enhancing. And so it is, you know, you're doing a public service by getting weird about the tarot. I did have that interaction though for the first time in ages, because I had a like, family function, capital F's TM. It's like my grandmother's 80th birthday or something, and some removed family member like put the whole thing together, and 10 people went out for dinner, but like weirdly near to where I live, which despite the fact that none of them live near here. But it was like, I don't know, some hotel or something. And I had come up with a lie about what I do with my life. And the first time anyone asked me what I was doing, it was already about 10:30, and we'd been there since 5:30, and the lie had disappeared. The script I'd come up with of the reasonable thing that I could say, because saying I'm disabled and don't work, not good. That doesn't.
Nobody likes that.
No, that kills any conversation. But then also, you know, small business tarot reader thing is difficult, as you know. And so I'd forgotten whatever lie I'd come up with. Some people in my family call me a writer, some people call me an artist. I don't know where those have come from, but I'll take it. But the lie had gone, and so what came out of my mouth was, I was as surprised as everyone else was. Professional witch.
Incredible.
Just like that. Like the filter had gone, the script had gone, the lie had disappeared, and so out of my mouth came the words, professional witch. I read tarot at markets. And my brother just looked at me like, well, you went there. You said the thing. I thought there was going to be a lie. Nope, I forgot. I'd figured it out like weeks in advance, and I'd done it. I pre-prepared too much. I'd flown too close to the sun. It disappeared out my ears. I get that. So I told my extended family that I'm a professional witch, and then they were like, "What does that look like in the day-to-day?" I was just that's not even strictly true, so I'm just going to have to rip on this and just be like, I do markets and stuff in Glasgow and Edinburgh. It's very nice. I meet some lovely people and have some deep chats because I'm shit at small talk, can't you tell?
Yeah, well.
This is why I do it, is because I can't do small talk, and this is like the best way to avoid all of that and just get straight into people's deep darks. It's all the Scorpio, you know? The important stuff.
Oh dear.
I'm going to very clunkily now ask you the next question.
Yeah, by all means.
Which came into your life first, your knowledge of tarot or your understanding of your neurodivergence?
Tarot did come first. I'm getting too specific about this in my head. You don't need exact dates and places.
It's okay. I do the
tarot. Yeah, I'm like, no, you need to know exactly when and what I was wearing and what I had for breakfast that day. No, tarot came first. Don't remember the exact how or the whys or the whens of the origin story, but I'd been essentially trying to like self-teach myself tarot with like good old Tumblr and the internet, and there were like a few like apps that would pull a card for you.
Yeah.
I was doing that for a while, and then I did get a deck, and then came the neurodivergence, and then came the tarot explosion in my practice in my life. And then so the YouTube and things came after my learning about ADHD and autism and having many deep conversations with my sister when we were both realizing this about ourselves. And that was also quite like validating, was we were just having lots of conversations of like, oh, do you remember when we were kids and this and that? And then we were like, how did nobody know? Yeah. And the greatest frustration about all of this is that this happened after my mum died. And I'm like, we have no one to ask about this. It's really frustrating. Yeah. But so tarot technically came first, but like the way that I think about tarot now and like the way I get real nerdy with it came after my like learning about and self-diagnosis, peer diagnosis of things.
Do you think that's linked, of the fact that you kind of figured that out about yourself, and then do you think there was a sense of kind of like permission to allow yourself get real weird and nerdy about something, or do you think it wasn't like...
I think it was maybe linked by like proxy, because the thing that I think about is my master's dissertation, which was in archaeology and anthropology and skeletal disease, and has nothing to do with anything I do with tarot. But my master's dissertation, I was getting into the way that we categorize skeletal disease in anthropology. And as that was like, I was doing that while I was having all this realization about autism. And I was like, oh, it makes so much sense that this is what I'd pick to do my master's degree on, or my dissertation for my master's degree, because as I'm like realizing so much about the way that my brain works and the way that I like think about things, it makes so much sense that this is what I pick. And then I also realized that that was what I was interested in tarot for like the same reasons.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
like essentially
it does,
we had my master's degree in forensic anthropology and archaeology to blame for everything.
Well, and the nitty-gritty of categorization and putting things in boxes, and can you ever put things in boxes, and what box is too big and what box is too small, and if you get too granular, but if you get too zoomed out, it's absolutely like, I love it. I remember when you explained it to me, and I was just like, oh, that's delicious.
I remember
that's so fun.
I think it was in a mind map, one of my videos that I've done, I think it was the mind map one, I talked about the concept of like lumping and splitting, which is something I talked about in my dissertation.
Yeah, fantastic.
And the way that people will either make categories by like lumping into fewer, bigger categories or splitting into like smaller but more similar to each other categories. But yes. And the conclusion I came to with my dissertation was that none of it matters unless we're defining our terminology. And that's also something that I feel like I end up doing in, especially like over on Patreon with like the Tarot Lab stuff, maybe a bit more than on YouTube. I'm like, right, I'm going to define everything and then we can move forward. Which I hope
we all need to know what I mean by this. Yeah,
exactly.
The shared word bank and the definitions of them. Yeah,
exactly.
But I think that ties so beautifully in with like, certainly my own experience of autism, is that like sense of speaking a different language.
Yes.
And you know, people joke about kind of the cross compatibility between like autistic and neurotypical people, and the sort of iPhone Android analogy of it all. But like that's so much of my life, is like seeing people using words in ways that I disagree with, essentially, and having to either be okay with that and just kind of let it wash over me, or decide that that's like a hill I want to die on, if like you were using that word incorrectly.
Yeah, and just asking a million clarifying questions, being really annoying, but it's like, but I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't think you know what you mean, but you are somehow expecting me to intuit that sort of like fill in the gaps and stuff, and that's why I was terrible at working for other people, because I would argue and then people would think of me as argumentative and stubborn, and those aren't words that I think of myself as, and then I think about myself actually out in the world and go, oh yeah, maybe.
But you just want to be correct. It's like I really, and I've said this before, it's like I really value specificity with language, because words mean things.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why I did really well in academia.
Yeah.
I mean, I only ever did degrees. I didn't actually work in academia, but I enjoyed it. I was good at it, because you've got to use technical language, and people have a lot of shit to say about like jargon, but I'm like, no, sometimes I need to say something specific, and the technical term is what expresses what I'm saying, because words mean things.
Yes.
And I am most accurately getting my thoughts and my ideas across if I'm using the accurate language. And like there's a difference between being like wordy and having the vocabulary and being like pretentious, because some people definitely are just using 50 words when they could use 5. But like sometimes I need to be precise and specific.
I mean, you've got like the Boris Johnsons and the fucking Russell Brands of the world, and you go, that is what you mean by the you know, the 50 words. But people that are just using accurate terminology, is, I agree, and it's where you get people kind of throwing around accusations of being pretentious, being a snob, being gatekeepy, with your language, and you just go, I accept, and you know, I care a lot about things like accessibility, and so I think about accessibility in terms of the language that I use. But then I also think that it would be really patronising to always be speaking down to people.
Yeah, exactly.
Always kind of going for like the lowest common denominator. And I know that not everyone has the same reaction that I do when I come across a word I don't know, which is excitement. And I'm like, oh, let me get a dictionary. I'm so excited. This is a great day. It's like my birthday.
Not that you were.
And then I'm going to be trying to like shoehorn it into every conversation I have for next week.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so I appreciate that not everyone has that, and you know, I'm fortunate to, you know, my neurodivergence doesn't include anything like dyslexia. But I think that the specificity of language, particularly in an era of like misinformation and disinformation and things all getting a little bit woolly.
Yeah,
I think that remembering that words have meanings and not letting those meanings get totally eroded. Like, I understand there's the fluidity of language, and, you know, sometimes things change due to common usage and stuff, but I will always have a little bit of a resistance to, you know, things like gaslighting. The word, like, the, you know... when
sometimes people are just lying.
Yeah. Sometimes people disagree with you, or sometimes people experience something different to you. That doesn't mean they're gaslighting you, and like
they're like Twitter therapy speak.
Oh, yeah,
Drives me a little bit nuts.
Yeah, that does.
Yeah, gaslighting is such a bad one.
And like everyone's a narcissist and love bombing and all of these things, and I'm just like, oh, these have roots in, but like quite severe. Realities and stuff, and so like they have meaning. Words have meanings.
Words mean things.
Yes, and it's just the shrieking it from the rooftops of like, you know, like this absolutely isn't like if English isn't your first language and you get words wrong kind of thing, or you know you don't understand a word, or you know, like all of the idioms and things like the. So there's a phrase for it, like, is it like minced oaths or something, where you say it's a damp squid instead of a damp squib or something, because you've only ever heard it, you've never seen it written down, that kind of stuff. It's not that, but it's like the using the correct words for things shouldn't be seen as being a dick automatically.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something I've just had to kind of make my peace with, because I know that, like, in a being an online person, Tarot Magpie sense, like, I sound quite posh, I like to use a lot of words, I am like a online tarot nerd, and I'm like, some people are going to think I'm pretentious, and I just have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I'm also, what I'm doing is not for everyone, and that's fine. I'm just like, I've decided I don't take it personally, because it's not.
But also we've been preparing our whole lives for that. That's true. Always being not
people
for everyone.
People don't like me, and that's just the way it is.
There's been papers done about it. People find us off-putting.
That's like, nothing new.
Yeah, like we have similar-ish accents, despite both coming from the West Country. I don't know if Salisbury's technically the West Country, but it's not quite so combine harvestery. But like, I imagine you have had the same experiences that I have of people always thinking that because you sound like this, you are rich, you are posh, and that you think you're better than them. I'm just like, I don't think I'm better than anyone. Like, I just sound like this.
I also get more posh when I get nervous, which, if I'm talking to a human, is like most of the time.
Or on the phone. God, my phone voice.
It's upsetting. I
want the tax bracket of my phone voice.
Oh my god, that would be nice. Yeah, maybe I don't know if it's ironic, but my mum specifically put a lot of effort into getting me and my sister to like enunciate and pronounce things properly when we were learning to speak and when we were kids, I think, so that we'd sound like smart and educated and people would take us seriously. And I'm like, I appreciate that, and that's, you know, all good intentions, but and I suppose it's not the worst problem to have that people think I'm posher than I am, rather than people thinking I'm stupid. Like, I guess I take this, but
it's a weird one.
I'm not as rich as I'm definitely not as rich as like single parent household babes.
Yeah.
Like we were
Same.
struggling.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the only single parent household I knew in my entire school year at secondary school. I knew, I think, one or two other people with like divorced or separated parents, but they still had like dual parent households. And I'm like, anyway, that's a whole tangent.
No, that I mean, I'm with you on that, and just that I don't know how it happened. Like, it's just, I don't know, there's some element of an autism accent of
I think maybe
not as porous to like kind of regional differences and stuff, but I don't know, because this is still an accent. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think also I was listening to someone on Instagram the other day that, I mean, probably speaks in a way that is even more kind of posh than we do, but talking about her autistic experience of she noticed that as she moved through the world, people with the voice that she now has got treated better, and so she kind of curated her own voice to be like the people that got treated the best that she saw. And I was just like, do you know, that tracks?
Nice.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that happening. Doop, doop, doop. I'm just looking at the questions and thinking, like, I think we have actually covered more of these than I usually manage, so I'm quite proud of us for doing that. Okay, so how do you see or approach tarot? So I've given some options for things to go from. Psychological, spiritual, reflective, predictive, for yourself, for others.
Okay, I don't do predictive fortune telling because I'm not good at it, and I guess more like psychological, reflective especially when I'm like reading for myself. I tend to, more often I don't often go in with like a specific like question that I want to answer. I'm just like, I want to pull some cards and see what they have to say. So I guess that's reflective. I don't know.
Yeah.
And also, I like the structure of tarot. I like just investigating it and playing with it just for the sake of it, almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I read for myself, and I read for others, and when I read for others, it's more, I don't do like face-to-face readings, I do like written up. You get like a report, because of course
I've had one of yours and I loved it so much. I was just like,
get a little definition of the card, because then we know what we're working with, and then I do my like little write-up.
Define the terminology, Sylvie. Define your terminology.
Exactly. We need to know what we're working with, because I don't know if the person knows tarot or not.
Exactly.
So you get a whole report, it's great. And then that is more, it'll be answering the question and kind of bringing everything together to respond to whatever the person has asked. But I don't do predictive readings because I'm not good at them. I've not really tried, to be fair, but I don't feel spiritual about the tarot. I don't feel like predictive-y about the tarot. Intuition feels like a myth. Sometimes, frequently I'm convinced I have no intuition.
Oh yeah, there's a question inspired by you and that coming up, I think. So I will definitely want to ask you that at some point, because it's such an interesting thing to talk about how people experience it, because again, it's one of these words but that has a totally different kind of meaning or experience for anyone you ask, and the answers can be like wildly different. And so I think whenever you were talking about feeling like you didn't have intuition, I was like, that's fascinating.
I think a lot of people
not
talk
in the
about
kind
it
of like clinking on the glass of,
but like cut me open.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what it's like. Just like there's the psychological element of all of tarot, and the associations, and the how we each find ourselves and find different things in amongst this quite set system. It's really cool that there's that combination of it being creative and quite rigorous. It's fun.
Rigorous is a word that I used a lot in my master's dissertation about categories. I'm also realising in this moment that what I do with tarot is that very like autistic coded thing of I like taking it apart to see how it works and putting it back together again.
Yeah.
And that's literally what I'm doing a lot of the time.
And it's fantastic.
So that makes a lot of sense, actually.
I think it's great, and I like hearing that other people don't always have a question when they sit down with their cards as well, because I don't. And I wonder if that's because when I started, I started with like a deck and a guidebook, and at no point in the guidebook did it suggest that you would have a question.
Right. Oh, that's
so
interesting.
For the first 10 years of reading tarot, it never occurred to me that you would have a question. You look at the cards and you see what the cards are saying.
Yeah, which is kind of how I practice. I think is if I have a specific question of like, you know, in life, it's like I'm probably articulating the question is like a difficult thing a lot of the time. When I'm like, oh, something is wrong or missing or should change or whatever, and it's like trying to figure out what that is and like articulating the question is kind of the hard part a lot of the time. And once I figure that out, I can move forward with it.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that comes into it. Tarot is, when people say like tarot is like a mirror, that's probably the closest to how I use it, because I just kind of see what comes up and see what that makes me think about.
Yeah, like kind of
And then
what,
kind of
what
go
it
from there.
sparks in that in that moment of kind of
Intuitive
what
hits, I guess.
associations. Yeah, well that's it, isn't it? It's like what do we mean like the so I think about like the associations it sparks, but you're right, to other people that would be intuitive hits.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of different ways of seeing your own process. And again, it's so much of this like the brain trying to observe itself, kind of turning in on, which is like my whole raison d'etre of just thing trying to sort of like turn itself inside out so that you can look at it and observe your own process. And that is fun to me.
You get it.
It's just like, you know, kind of, is it a bit navel-gazy? Is it a bit unnecessary? Maybe. I love it. It's the reason I get up in the morning. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to skip ahead to whatever the question is that I wrote about.
Oh, yeah.
Intuition.
Watch me have nothing to say.
And that's totally fine. Okay, so the question that I have in this iteration is, does your experience of your neurodivergence impact your intuition or your sense of your intuition, and how would you describe it? Because I had one interview where my questions were all phrased about like, does your neurodivergence like impact your intuition or whatever? And they were like, how do I differentiate between me and my I'm what? And I was just like, right.
That right there.
That.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose it's, do you think that rather than does it? Because you could never actually know, I suppose.
There's no like control group.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the most frustrating things about being human is that there's no like control.
There's no neutral. Yeah.
Can you tell I did science-based things at uni?
Oh, but I love it because I didn't. I never. I had my B or Mentee B before I got that far, but it's like that. I love it. I love hearing all about it.
Process, as you can tell from all of the things I do. But intuition, for a long time, this makes it sound so dramatic. I was convinced that I have no intuition because when people, specifically in regards to tarot readings, when I was seeing people talk about intuition and intuitive hits and all this, it often was framed in the sense of like either like a psychic download, which is not something I think I've ever experienced, or of like, the idea of like things coming to you out of, I guess, somewhere external is how I was like, oh, that's what intuition is. And that's not how my brain feels like it operates. And if we look to the neuroscience definition of intuition, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's literally just like those first like unconscious associations that your brain makes. Yeah. And which everybody does all the time, but intuition is not necessarily correct. Like it's not necessarily like the best answer or the truth or whatever. It's just like the first sort of subconscious thing that pops into your brain. And from that perspective, intuition can be wrong as often as it is right. But when people talk about intuition in a tarot sense, at least for what I have seen, it is often framed as like, oh, that's the truth, like the capital T truth, or some kind of like, it's an answer coming from somewhere and it's coming from like a source, whether that's, you know, yourself or whatever you believe in or something external. And I'm like, that never feels like what I've experienced, because I'm like, no, my thoughts are coming from inside my head. Where else would they be? Which again, like maybe I'm taking it too literally, but so when I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh no, it absolutely does. And I think like the bit in the neuroscience of tarot where they explain essentially like the science of intuition. And I think what's kind of interesting about it is that, so if you're not, I'm going to have to be really careful about how I phrase this so I don't come off like an asshole. If you're not in the practice of thinking about your thoughts and kind of watching your process happen in real time, then intuition probably does feel like a bolt from the blue.
Right,
but you're used to observing your own thoughts and kind of seeing where things come from and making those connections, or like seeing the connections as they happen. So I am feeling this thing because I know that I can't see the door, and so therefore I know I'm feeling on edge. Or I associate that colour with this thing, therefore it's making me think of this thing. So, you know, that card is a particular shade of turquoise that I remember my aunt wearing at a wedding 20 years ago. Like, if that's not happening in a kind of a verbalised way in your head, then it's going to be like, suddenly I'm thinking of my auntie. This intuitively, it's about my auntie. And so I think if you are tapped into the kind of the verbal element of it, then nothing will ever feel like it's coming from nowhere, because it's like you're watching the thing happen. And so I wonder if that's like, it's interesting you say about the intuition thing sometimes being framed as an external thing, because that's absolutely, like, I always think of intuition as coming from an internal place, sometimes from like your gut feelings of my body is telling me that something is happening that I can't articulate in my head. So I feel on edge, I don't know why. Intuition, potentially. Or anxiety disorder. We'll never know. But then there's also these like this idea of the download thing, and I like playing with that as a concept, because I have had that happen to me sometimes where it is like something has kind of dropped from a height into my head that I can't trace, whereas usually I can follow and this is where this came from because, you know, such and such wore this, whatever, and it kind of ripples out and you can make all the connections like your lovely obsidian thing. But sometimes it will just appear and I'm like, is that, were I of the inclination to believe in such and blah, I think I would count this as that. An interesting thing to ponder.
It's interesting what you say about verbalizing, connecting the dots, because I have had a similar conversation with my sister actually, where my brain is words. I think of everything in like sentences. And she was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I think in pictures. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
It's so interesting actually, the tangent. We thought like we were enemies as children, and growing up and looking back, it's really interesting to see that like we're both autistic, but we like have very different like ways of showing it.
Yeah, it's like this like a cognitive profile thing, isn't it?
Yeah, we're like very opposite in a lot of ways, which is really interesting to learn about ourselves, about each other. But yeah, I think about my thinking all the fucking time. And have done for as long as I can remember. I'm forever thinking about how I'm thinking. And I do think in like words, I think in like semi-coherent, strung together like sentences. So yeah, when I'm seeing a card or I'm like reminded of a thing, I'm immediately thinking about that chain of association. That's a good point. And also what you said about intuition being like internal or external. I think of myself as my brain and everything else is external. Yeah. So if I get like a gut feeling, I'm like, that's external because I'm a little robot in my brain.
Yeah, you're
like
just like pulling levers in a little like control,
like a control panel.
Booth. Yeah,
up there. I'm just a little guy in here.
Yeah. No, I felt like that for a very, very long time, and it's only relatively recently that I think the phrase that I've used to like therapists and stuff is that I feel like I'm kind of filling myself out to my edges and inhabiting my body for the first time in my life, which I'm not a fan of, but it's this whole human flesh suit thing, it's a scam. But the little just being a wee guy just up here pressing buttons, pulling levers and stuff is very, very relatable. And so the idea of the kind of the having a bodily sensation as like that kind of sensory input, it's like something can come up on the screen and be like, you need to urinate, rather than being like, I need to. And like it's the separation of like the body and the mind thing. So it's like I think of my body as an external separate entity. Again, I was journaling about this and about how like feeling kind of in opposition to it so often, and like I'm fighting against that, but then just being like, but I am, regrettably, my body.
I'm a whole person, like it or not.
I am actually a mammal, and it's icky, but it is the truth.
Deeply.
But the thinking in full sentences, I love, because my mum has that, and she sees it like a kind of ticker tape or like LED screen, and I speak very quickly. Sometimes she really struggles with like essentially like auditory processing because I speak essentially too quickly for the screen.
Yeah, so her subtitles
her
can't keep up.
Yeah, and that is where we have like communication challenges. Whereas I suppose, like, interestingly, I'm like somewhere between you and your sister, because I suppose I see, so like if I'm talking about, you know, even just my example of, you know, seeing the colour turquoise, imagining the auntie in the outfit, I can see all of that in my mind's eye immediately, but there is also a narration, because my brain never shuts up. I have a constant narrator, like from a children's film, of just, and then like, you know, someone will say something, or I will think something that is a lyric to a song that I heard once 10 years ago, and suddenly that song is in my head, and it's just this constant soup of noise. So I suppose I'm not reading it, I'm hearing it in like a layered thing of I'm hearing what's actually happening, and
that is how I feel. It's
like the multi-sensory thing is all happening kind of in here somewhere, as well as my experience of the external world. But yeah, though, the thinking in full sentences is, I think if that's how you experience the world, then intuition is going to feel different, because you can follow the thread back. It's like one of those big kind of conspiracy theory boards, like you can see
the inside of my brain is just a conspiracy theory board.
It's a lot of red thread everywhere, and newspaper
and me in the middle just looking like stressed.
It's going, but the Four of Cups, it's not about boredom. It's not. I was watching your cancer text video this morning.
Yeah, and again, it's that like when I was thinking about like I don't have intuition, because I'm like, well, there's clearly only one way that intuition works, because that's what I'm seeing, and my brain isn't doing that, and so my normal is not the normal.
Yeah, but that's it when we don't have these conversations and we talk about, and you know, I'm guilty of doing this as well, of where we pick up on a common experience or a common understanding of something, and we kind of use that as a shorthand with each other. But then if you come into that conversation from a literal standpoint and you go, right, what? Everyone experiences this thing exactly the same. And it's like, no, we don't. And if you asked every single one of those people that you heard talking about intuition in that way, what intuition felt like to them in their body or in their mind, or in, you know, the whole human soup of it all. And then, you know, for the people that were so inclined, what the kind of psychic and, you know, if there's kind of spiritual stuff that comes in on, like, can you pass out the differences between those things? Everyone would have a different experience of that, but we end up with these shorthands that I think can then be a little bit, it can make things a bit muddy if you are then more literal and thinking like, well, that's exactly how everyone experiences it and I don't experience it like that, therefore I'm like other.
Yeah, like not having that experience.
Yeah. And then you get a book like The Neuroscience of Tarot and you go, oh, yeah, of course I do that, because that's how brains are.
Yeah, that book was absolutely fascinating, and I want more of it.
Yeah, I can't think what, like, I didn't know I needed that until I saw that it existed, and I was just like, fuck me, wow, that's everything I want. And so now I can't imagine what the other books are like that I would want, but I know I want them all anyway. I want people to get into like the nitty gritty of everything ever.
Yes. I mean, same, just as a general rule.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to see your processes, I want to see your definitions, because yeah, like I did science-based subjects at uni, and the like work I did was always in a scientific framework, and people have a lot of shit to say about science, and I'm like, yes, but not, and this is when I'm like, I feel the need to correct people, because I'm like, yes, but not for the reasons that you think you have an issue with science. Because I'm like, the scientific method, the scientific process is not designed to answer all of our questions. It's a thing that we made up to like quantify stuff, and simply not everything fits into that framework, and it was never meant to, and it's never going to. And the fact that the framework exists is not a bad thing, that it means that just because something's scientifically proven doesn't mean that it's correct. And because something can't be scientifically proven doesn't mean that it's like not real. It just isn't a thing that can be like counted and measured and controlled for. Because like I did archaeology, which there's no control for archaeology because we've got the skeletons we can't, and especially, you know, especially when we're trying to like reconstruct, I'm going on a complete tangent, I'm so sorry. When we're trying to like reconstruct, say, like a settlement or something, there's no way of proving it because we have not yet invented time travel. And if we did, we wouldn't need to do archaeology. And there's no like control for it. We are just essentially making our best guesses. And so like we try to apply the scientific method to archaeology, partly as like a preservation of data thing, because it's inherently a destructive process. Like we dig stuff out of the ground and it's not there anymore. But we know that we can't answer all our questions with the scientific method. So I think I've lost my train of thought. But people have beef with science, and they should, but not for the reasons that they think they should.
I mean, in the archaeology thing, I think about, what do they call it, like the shrink wrap effect about dinosaurs? Where we had the skeletons and we thought the dinosaurs looked like, if you put skin immediately over the skeletons, forgetting that most animals don't look like that. And if you look at the skeleton of a mouse and you just put skin over it and no anything else, then it wouldn't look like a fucking mouse. And like the things that we can't know and stuff like that. But like you say, that doesn't mean that it's useless. And I think like you'll get some people in our kind of woo and woo adjacent circles as well, kind of falling down the sort of like, well, science can't answer everything, snowball thing, and things can get a little bit dicey quite fast. But it's like, yes, and it isn't supposed to, and it doesn't want to, and that's a good thing. And also it's like that, you see it like particularly around like sex and gender stuff, where people think they learn something in like age 12 biology lessons about Punnett square genetics, X's and Y's, inheritance and genes, and you just go, okay. The difficulty with like primary school level science is that it is setting building blocks for you to work on, but you always have to unlearn stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember doing that even just up to A level. The amount of so for other people in other countries, that's the exams you do when you're like 17 and 18. I had to unlearn the stuff that I did at exams when I was 16, because the stuff that we'd been taught that would pass those exams when you're 16 is kind of accurate enough for a 16-year-old, but it's not accurate enough to follow on to the next level of things when you're 18 years old. And then if you followed that up into university, you're then going to have to unlearn everything that you did when you were 16 and 18, because then you need to, because they're making it more and more complex. So it's, the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know. And it's the same for like philosophy, and the same for all sorts of stuff. The deeper you go into any subject, the more rabbit holes kind of appear to you, and you realise you can kind of only go down a select few. But it's when you stay at that very, very first principles thing and you assume that that's everything, and that science says this very, very... And it's like, no, if you follow science into any direction, you will find out that science doesn't say anything is black and white at all.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think the idea that they're building blocks and so they must be like foundational. I understand how we would make that assumption, because it feels
a bad
logical.
metaphor, isn't it?
That it's like, no, they're not foundational, they're just really simplified. And like that's not at all the same thing.
No, they're like kind of bite-sized pieces of a very challenging to eat whole.
Exactly.
They're like the most edible bits of a whole thing. And it's, I think that's, you see that across all of science when people are kind of saying, oh, but it's simple, it's basic. And you just go, oh, have I got something to explain to you about science? And any scientist worth their salt will say that there isn't really any such thing as kind of simple and basic. There are some very, very good science communicators out there that can express and explain things in ways that are more digestible, but still you can't ever distill things down into these total kind of chicken nugget level edible things.
No, 100%.
Without all the caveats in the world, which you also don't learn when you're in primary school. Because they don't tell you this is factually inaccurate, but it'll do because you're 9. Like they don't.
Because that would also be confusing.
Yeah, and I remember being fuming when I was like 17 or something and doing, or not even, like 16, doing biology and being like, we were taught like almost the exact opposite of this in our previous exams, and her going like, yeah, because like how could we have explained this to you when you were 10 or something?
Yeah,
Just like...
it's so frustrating when you're a teenager, for sure. But now, like, as an adult, who probably because I'm done with formal education, I'm like, oh no, it's great that, especially like in archaeology, especially like the further back you go, obviously the less evidence there is. And one thing that I was really, really into was always like human evolution. And like early pre-human hominins and all that jazz. And the thing I love about that is that every time we find something new, it basically radically changes everything we thought we knew. And I love that. Archaeology is so big and weird, and it's my favorite thing. But it's fun now because I'm not like being forced to pass exams that I don't really care about. Like I deliberately chose to do archaeology at uni and all that jazz. Yeah, but that's, I think, and I'm having like 3 conversations in my head right now.
It's fine.
I think archaeology is specifically such a good subject for my brain because it is that blend of like scientific process, scientific method as far as we can, but also knowing that we'll never know the answers is really refreshing because nobody else does that. Yeah. I mean, maybe some like quantum physics, but like in a lot of other, especially like at a uni level where they're trying to teach you so you can go out and be like good little worker bees, very few other disciplines will be like, we actually don't know if this is true and we're never going to know if this is true, and we have made our peace with that. Like nobody else really says that, and that I think
such a good point.
Makes a lot of sense as to why I explore tarot the way I do.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, and I don't need to know. The process is fun.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think it's so fun, like for my autistic brain that does kind of crave sureness about sureness. It craves to be sure. I'm sounding Irish, but it's like it wants certainty. That's a better word. It wants certainty. Yeah. It wants things to be correct or incorrect. And tarot and kind of science of that sort of flavour, like archaeology and psychology as well.
Yeah.
Of like it is all kind of ideas and theories, and not theories in the kind of, the theory of gravity sense, but theories as in like we think.
Yeah, like hypotheses.
Yeah, like it could be like that, but really we can't tell because you can't see it. You can't, it's, it's electrical impulses in matter, but then also kind of a whole bunch of other stuff that we don't really understand. And so kind of I love that because it's sort of a little bit like poking a bruise for me of just going like, see, you can't know it all. You can't ever be certain about something. And isn't that great, Imogen? Isn't that wonderful? Don't you love that? And it's just like, well, yeah, I do. Actually, I find it really exciting and fun, and it makes me relax, kind of. Conversely, it makes me go, oh, actually, you can't know things. You can't know why tarot can do that weird thing that it can do. You don't know why. And I think it's made me less of an arsehole about kind of the unprovable element of the world.
Right.
Is that there are so many things that are kind of, you can't be proven in a kind of empirical scientific method sense, even within the realms of science, that like it just makes me take a step back and be like, it's okay. It's okay that we can't explain this.
Totally get that. Yeah, something that I say a lot about like tarot or about like mental health things is just like, if it works, it works. And sometimes I don't. Why is not the important thing. Because again, when it comes to tarot, like I'm not actually looking for answers. Like quite literally, like I'm not often asking a question that I want like a response for.
Yeah. And
so I'm like I'm not looking for the like how and the why until like, or I am looking for the how and the why, but in like a different way. Like, I'm not looking for like correctness.
Yes.
Or like capital T truth. Yeah. And like I think it's the same thing with a lot of like coping with like being in a neurodivergent brain or like having depression or whatever. It's like, well, if the thing works, it works, and as long as it's not like harmful to anybody, the whether it's normal or what other people would do or what your CBT would recommend or like whatever, like that's so not important. But like if it works, it works.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Like don't touch it.
Yeah, that's, I always feel a bit like that as well. Like essentially, like don't poke it. Like don't fuck with it too much. And like that's a bit, I suppose, like it's probably not ideal. I feel kind of anxious about those sorts of things, but I absolutely agree in terms of like, does it matter? And kind of asking myself that, not even asking other people that, but to myself, like, does it matter? Always asking myself that about things, and because I believe that a lot of things matter. I care excessively deeply about a lot of things, as you know. But then it's really nice having some things in your life where you just go, it doesn't matter. I don't need to understand why. I don't need to get into those particular weeds about this thing. I can go and get into the fun wildflower weeds of this is fun and exciting, and we can play with it and see if it does something interesting, and that kind of experimental things, like your tarot lab of the what can you make it do? What can you kind of, how can you like push it and pull it and stretch it in different ways, and layering different things onto it, so like doing the astrology stuff, or you know, turning it all on its head and looking at reversals and doing that thing you can, and that you can try on different hats with it, of like, today I'm going to read reversals, today I'm going to read with astrology, today I'm going to read a Smith-Waite deck like a Marseille deck, or a Marseille deck like a Smith-Waite deck, or today I'm going to believe that my reading is from a god, or some stuff. Like you can go in so many different directions, and none of it's high stakes. It's
you can just like
fun.
Try stuff, because especially like with tarot, I'm like, at the end of the day, because I'm sure that people who are more like spiritual with their practice would probably feel differently, but like my practice is not spiritual, and like tarot is a deck of cards. It's a tool that I can play with and that I can just put down and also walk away from if it doesn't make sense, or if for whatever reason, like I don't think I've ever had an uncomfortable reading, but like if I did, it's like, well, I can put it down and walk away, because it's just a pack of cards. So there's so much room to like play with it and to experiment with it, and none of it has to be like high stakes or serious or something I'm going to do forever. I'm just like seeing what I can do with it, and then take what's useful, and maybe you do a thing that makes no sense and you just never do it again, and that's fine.
It kind of doesn't really work, you don't really get anything out of it, but like that's kind of the worst that can happen.
Exactly.
I think sometimes, like, so when I have dabbled in, I suppose, like more predictive style readings, so like I did I think it was my first ever year ahead reading, and I'd never done one before, and I pulled a card for every month of the year, and pretty standard. But then I pulled the Tower for March, and during March I just couldn't quite shake it from my head, and I don't really believe in my predictive powers. It like has done some weird uncanny shit to me, like particularly when I was a teenager, but I'm coming at it from a very similar place to you in terms of it being a non-spiritual secular practice thing, and that sometimes I will try on a hat of kind of essentially kind of like playing with my own belief system and my own psychology of like, what would it be like to do that? But I don't, deep in my gut, I don't have any kind of like deep-seated beliefs about what tarot is or where messages come from or anything like that. I don't think my decks are sacred or anything like that. But I did manage to give myself like a little bit of a thing that time, and I was just like, this isn't good for anyone. Like, this isn't. And you can kind of, I suppose I then start thinking about the people who ingest tarot content and things like pick-a-card readings, and that kind of, if you can get that slightly spooked feeling from a card, and you just go, okay, we do need to be a bit careful with this, because I don't consider myself as being one of those people, and yet I've managed to 3 months later still be remembering that I pulled a Tower for this month, and kind of be like waiting to see what was going to happen. And like, I mean, that's where you would get a self-fulfilling prophecy, is where you're like looking for a Tower moment everywhere, and like nothing happened. And so I was just like, great, amazing. But some people, really, really believe in that, and that is part of their practice and stuff, and I suppose that's where I'm just a bit like, okay, but go careful with that, because you don't want to be accidentally essentially like kind of disempowering yourself in that way.
Prophesizing your own doom.
Oh, exactly. I'm reading a book at the moment, and the main character is quite like autistic coded, and one of her special interests is astrology, but it's like, I don't know what flavour of astrology it is exactly, but it's not one that I'm familiar with, but she like keeps talking about being able to like predict people's deaths and like knowing that kind of stuff, and I'm just like, there are some things you don't need to know.
Yeah, I think also in general, I'm just not that interested in predicting my own future or anybody else's. And it's none of my business.
Yeah, yeah, I love, yeah.
Not at this time.
Yeah.
Like,
It's none of my business, absolutely. Yeah, my thing would always be like, if there was something that could be done about it, then maybe I'd be interested. But if it's just like, I mean, the concept of a hard and fast future is also something that doesn't fit with my
same
belief system, such that it is anyway. But certainly the idea of being able to predict something and then not do, like, why would you do that? Like, why? For why?
Yeah,
so
it
you
also
can be more prepared? Like,
doesn't make sense. To my brain, it doesn't make sense. And that's not to say I'm like dismissing, I feel the same way about like religion in general. It's like I'm not dismissing the possibility, but it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm not going to go around believing in it because it, like, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a more adequate way of putting that. But like,
no, but I get it. Of just like that, you just don't.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying that I have no reason to believe in it.
Yeah.
Which there is a difference to that. There is a difference.
Yeah, because it does sound kind of condescending to be like, if you believe in it, then kind of good for you. But I do. I mean, because I'm in the same boat, I hear it and I'm like, I don't think that's inherently disrespectful, and I do see that there's a difference between not believing in it for yourself, but respecting that it works for other people. But then, I don't know. I'm sure someone would have an issue with that, but I
expect so.
Yeah, and that's, one of the top contentious topics, isn't it?
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't... And I think, like, I was so... I don't think I've ever been, like, aggressively atheist, but, like, very assertively atheist for, like, a lot of my life. And it's been quite fun to be more around more woo people and to just kind of play with the idea of different beliefs and stuff, but I don't hold anything like deep. I mean, it's like the tarot thing, I don't hold anything kind of deep in my core in some sense of some, like you were saying, like capital T truth of the universe or something. I think a lot of my interests boil down to the fact that I'm just really interested in stories. And so I find, particularly because we find ourselves amongst like a lot of pagans and religions with like deep mythologies and cosmologies and stuff, I just find that really interesting. So that's fun for me to just kind of exist in amongst, but without having some kind of hard and fast sense of religion. Or I'd say I'm more kind of like very loosely spiritual now than teenage me would have been happy with, but just more kind of accepting of more stuff. But it's, but again, I think it's a lot of this playing with the unknown and the unprovable, and being okay with that, and sort of just playing with my own capacity for accepting that you can't know everything, and just being okay with that, and not being like that as being a huge source of stress. Because I think that it used to just, in the way that it used to stress me out, that I would never read all the books or watch all the films or that kind of thing, of just the idea that anything is inherently unknowable would have been horrifying.
I get that. I think I'm like, the way you're interested in stories, I'm interested in like how things work, I guess, maybe. And so I imagine that I probably sound quite dismissive to a lot of people who believe in things that are unprovable, and I never mean to, but obviously I think I don't know if that's like it's a bit of a chicken and egg. It's like, is that because of the autism? Because I want to like ask why 50 times, and like, how did you come to that conclusion? And like, that sounds really dismissive, and it's like, that's like, I'm asking because I want to know, and not that I go around interrogating people about their religious beliefs. This obviously is not. I've never done that.
No, I know what you mean.
In a more hypothetical sense.
Yeah. But I mean, wouldn't it be lovely to live in a time and a place where you could and people wouldn't get shitty with you? Like, I want to know. I want to know what it feels like to have faith.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, because I went to like a CB primary school, and my mum always went to church, and so I was dragged along to church until I was old enough to be left home by myself. And so I tried real hard to believe, because that's what I thought you did. It's what everybody around me was doing. And I was just like, but I know that I don't. And that is something that, like, maybe again, that's like black and white, observing my own thought process thing.
Because I don't think it matters to some people.
No, and that's...
They don't kind of think they'll be of a religion, but they don't necessarily believe, and that is fine to them.
Yeah, but I'm, in my brain, in my going through life, I'm like, but I don't see the point in doing that for myself.
Yeah.
That doesn't
absolutely.
make sense. Like, why would, like, if I don't believe in a thing, I don't believe in a thing.
Yeah.
And, like, I can be interested in a thing, and I'm interested in lots of things, but yeah,
No,
it's a thing of, like,
I
I don't believe that it doesn't exist, but I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
And
No, I'm with you. If it doesn't connect with you, then, like, why would you pretend or kind of go through the motions?
Because it would feel like pretending for me.
Yeah. And I think that's more disrespectful.
I feel like it's a
like-
waste of everybody's time. I feel
Yeah,
like I'd be
absolutely.
like
It's not very efficient.
No, it's not very... I'd be like not intercepting, what's the word? I don't know. Interloping. Something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd be there under false pretenses.
Exactly. No, I'm so with you. I get it. And, like, I find it fascinating as a concept. And I always have done. But there is, like you say, there's no way of asking these questions in a way that doesn't come across as either kind of tapping the glass
Truly.
or being really argumentative. I'm like, what do you mean you believe in God? How does that work in 2025?
Yeah.
What is that all
The
about?
closest I got to having some of those conversations was against my will with my mother. She would have continued, like, going to church and being part of that, like, community practice of her faith.
Yeah. Yeah, the community thing's a big
Yeah.
deal for a lot of people, and, like, particularly depending on where you come from, like, that can be, like, such a lifeline. And so kind of essentially, does it matter if you believe in it or not? Because that's not why you're there for the community. And I think potentially both of us are too autistic for that, because we're just like, but I don't believe, therefore I shouldn't be here, and therefore it's, I mean, like, my thing was always like, is it not wildly disrespectful? So, like, when I was at Catholic school and being given the body and blood of Christ, which they believe are the body and blood of Christ, it's like, is that not wildly disrespectful to be giving that to a non-believer?
Yeah.
Like, or sending me into confession or whatever when I don't believe, like, is that not, like, that feels real wrong? And they were like, no, it's more disrespectful for you to not go along with it. And I was just like, and there in lies one of the major things of my life that will go with me forever, which is never understanding that people sometimes just want you to put up and shut up and go along with things for the sake of going along with it, whether you agree with it or not. It's the everything for a quiet life thing that is just deemed as being more respectful or respectable, rather than being the one that
You don't want to make a fuss.
Exactly. It's
Not
not very
in Britain.
British. Exactly. Not very British to be like, no, I don't understand. Can you explain that to me? Get away from me, child. It's not ideal. Jeez, what a place. What a place.
Oh dear. Such
Yeah. Are there any cards you associate with or think depict your experience of neurodivergent?
This is not something I've ever thought about. And I did see that question when I was having a read through, and I was like, this is not something I've ever thought about, and proceeded to not think about it.
That is...
I could probably, it's one of those things, I could probably come up with some if I sat down and thought about it, but, like, not instinctively.
Yeah.
Really.
Not, like, off the top of your head. No, that's fair.
No.
Sarah from Tiny Tarot did a whole video about it, and I was like, that's genius. I'm stealing that as a question, because what an interesting thing to think about.
Oh yeah, no, I think I saw that.
Because it's like all of them, but also I probably could pick out some, like, because, like, I don't have an answer for that, but I'm just interested because some people are just, like, immediately.
No,
So what
that's
was
really
it?
cool.
I think Ty from Ty Constellation was like Seven of Swords, just immediately, like, misunderstood, managing your
That's
resources.
a good one.
Like, people think you're being sneaky or kind of doing something devious, but actually, like, you're just, like, we don't know the full story of what's going on in the Seven of Swords. Exactly, we don't know.
That's interesting, actually, because I feel like quite a more sympathetic view of the Seven of Swords than a lot of resources tend to.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, maybe they're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that that's a neurodivergence card.
But yeah, just talking about, like, sevens being about, like, discernment, and then, so, like, my thing was then thinking about, like, swords being, like, mental resources and trying to, like, tune into, like, where you need to spend them and stuff, and about that being, like,
such a good
the whole
one.
fucking battle. But, like, fascinating. And then there was someone else, I think, who was ADHD, and they were, like, A1s just straight off the bat, and I was like, fair.
Yeah.
like, stop, I want to get off, everything's just moving so fast. Just being like, yeah, get it, that's fine. But no, I don't have any, other than the ones that other people have said, and I've gone, oh yeah, that's genius. I'm just like, I mean, all of them and none of them.
Yeah, I think I probably could, especially because of the way I think of tarot. I'm like, they all mean nothing and everything, and it's all layers and blah, blah, blah. So I probably could connect any single one of them to my experience.
Yeah.
Because yeah, when you said 8 of Wands, I'm like, okay, yes, but they're all going in the same direction, and that does not feel real to me. I'm like, 5 of Wands. I'm just
5 of Wands make it scattered.
5 different directions.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
definitely.
Yeah, not off the top of my head.
Or 7 of Wands, they're all coming at you. Like, it's...
9 of Wands, you're just tired.
Yeah, just... Need
No,
a rest,
9
need
of
to sit down.
Swords doesn't feel like specifically a neurodivergent experience, but 9 of Swords is a card that sadly I see myself in because, like I said, I'm a chronically bad sleeper since birth, and actually maybe that's the closest to reflecting like my neurodivergent experience, because all of my anxiety boiled down to autism. This is something I realized once I was on like antidepressant meds. I was like, oh, I don't think I've ever had capital A anxiety. The anxiety I have is autistic anxiety of like doing things wrong and being perceived to do things incorrectly and not understanding the like hidden secret rules and things. And that for sure has kept me up at night over the years. So 9 of Swords would be like the closest.
Yeah.
Sadly.
No, I can see that. And like the question of, is it all in my head? Which is that's the kind of the question that the 9 of Swords always throws up for me, of like kind of
that's a good one.
But then like my personal experience of nightmares is that like part of the reason that I got such like decent trauma therapy off the NHS was because I had such severe nightmares that I didn't really sleep properly for like a number of years, and it was like throwing me into like essentially being in almost a constant state of re-experiencing stuff. So I was just living in this weird fugue state for a number of years. But a lot of my nightmares were like re-experiencing things that had happened. And so my thing of nightmares is like, is it something your brain's making up, or is it something like, is it? And so it's a little bit 7 of Cupsy, of the sort of distinguishing, but the Swords equivalent of like, is it real? Is it? And also then like the inherited nature of negative thoughts, of so much of our negative self-talk has come from external sources at some point that we've just internalised and now use it as sticks to hit ourselves with, or swords to stab ourselves with. And so there's a load of, I suppose, like, and it's the beauty of tarot of where like the personal experience of what I associate with nightmares then gets laid on top of the card, and you can pull on all these little threads. And I think it's a good one as like a neurodivergent thing. And also just the kind of the being up, thinking about your thoughts is very
far too real.
Yeah, far too real. Quite want the quilt though. I want the tarot quilt. I think that would be cute. Just wrap yourself up in that and be like, no nightmares.
I feel like T. Susan Chang and Emma Meline, one or both of them, because I remember listening to a podcast episode, one or both of them made that quilt, I think.
I think it's T. Susan Chang. I think I remember that and being like, oh God, if I was a quilter, you better believe I do not have the brain for it. I don't have that flavour of autism.
No.
I have a friend who is like a pure autistic, no, not even a splash of ADHD in there, and she's a quilter. And I'm like, I do not.
Quilting requires too many steps.
Yeah.
Or like too many repetitive going over the same thing steps.
Yeah, and like I was a sewist seamstress for a number of years, and like I did exams in it and stuff, and I still, even when I was being tested, refused to do things like sewing it loosely in place once. I was like, I'm going in with the sewing machine, doing it by eye, fuck you.
Yeah, I do that with a lot of things.
And yet we're so methodical about so many other things, but it's, the efficiency.
It's more efficient to do it right the first time.
And there's the funny confidence thing of being like, I reckon I can do it. It's grand. We'll be fine.
The thing is, usually I can do a decent job of most. I think maybe also I'm not going to look at like somebody building a house and be like, oh, I reckon I could do that. Like, I'm not that delusional. But if it's like an artsy crafty thing, I can probably figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
At least like half well.
But it's like, it's a particular flavour of like maths and patience and a whole bunch of stuff that I don't think I really possess. And so, no, but would love one day a tarot quilt. And then be like, no, I'm going to redefine what this card is like, and because I'm going to have a nice night's sleep with this quilt. I'm not going to be up with the nightmares. It's going to be okay. Or I'm going to, like, I don't know, steal someone's, like, it's the internet, borrow someone's cat and be like, snug. There is a snug cat in the quilt. Now the quilt is better. That's a tangent. Remake the narrative of the Nine of Swords. I don't know, it's kind of funny. I think you're the person that I know best out of, well, certainly I know the answers to more of these questions about you than I do about maybe anyone else that I've done these with, and so I just keep skimming past them going, I know the answer to that, and going, that's not the point, Imogen. The point of this is that there are people out there in government right now that think that, like, autistic people should be exterminated. So the point is that we're going on the internet and we're showing that we're fun and fruity and deserve a place in society because we're interesting and entertaining, and that this actually isn't as fun and frivolous as I thought it was going to be. And I was just like, I just like talking to people about these things because autism has been my special interest for a really, really long time.
That's so real.
And I just wanted to have these conversations with people, and then suddenly it kind of clicked. I think I was mid-interview where, like, someone said something that just sounded like a compliment about, like, how important these conversations are. And I think it was the week that your man in America was saying the things about autistic people who never pay taxes or go on a date or play basketball or whatever. And I was like, wait, is this important? Is this necessary? So, yeah. So it's just, reminding people that autistic adults exist and that we're very fun and delightful and shouldn't be eradicated. Please and thank you. Have you had, I can't find this question, but it is in there somewhere, things like collective symbolism and, I suppose, like, received tarot wisdom? So you read a beginner's guidebook, it tells you this card means X, Y, Z. Have you had any notable experiences of really not connecting with, like, same with, like, archetypes and kind of collective symbolism and stuff? So, like you were saying about having a more favourable, perhaps, interpretation of the Seven of Swords, because we don't know the backstory, they might just be trying to survive, maybe they need those swords, kind of thing. Have you had any other experiences like that?
I'm sure that I have, and actually the one that, I don't know if it technically sort of fits, but the Hierophant is my, oh no, I thought my mic had died, sorry. Yeah, the Hierophant, I feel like I have a whole, like, essay of a blog post that needs to be actually made into coherent thoughts, that I have lots to say about a Hierophant, and I think it's less maybe like what the card is like, quote unquote, supposed to mean that I disagree with, and not even that I disagree with it, but it's people's criticisms of the Hierophant, or people saying, like, the Hierophant to them is a bad card because it represents organized religion, which obviously what everybody else sees on the card is valid, and I'm not saying they're wrong for seeing that, but I feel like the Hierophant is more complicated than a lot of the other cards, because when I think of, like, some of the original, like, way back when context of the Hierophant is, like, yes, organized religion, but organized religion however many years ago didn't mean the same thing as it means in, like, our society today. And in today, like, the ideas of community and spirituality can be very separate from each other. They don't necessarily mean the same thing. And the Hierophant is gatekeepy is also a thing that I see a lot. And I'm like, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I also don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. The idea of, like, gatekeeping, like, they hold the wisdom, they've got their acolytes there, deciding what information they will and will not share. And I'm like, I can see how that, yes, can be a bad thing, that some gates need keeping. Like, libraries exist. Some communities are, like, closed communities, or, like, you have to, like, give the information, or you have to, like, it's, so I don't know if that answers your question. And I also know that was not a very eloquent explanation, because I have, like I say, like, essays worth of thoughts written down about the Hierophant.
I mean, it's a complex
that I haven't fully articulated, but I think the Hierophant is very complicated. But the Hierophant's never just been, like, religion or learning.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I've been waiting for the Hierophant to come up in answer to that question, because I think like, essentially, if you think enough / too hard about any of the cards,
What? Me?
which is
Never.
why we're here, like it can get as complex as that. But I do think that the Hierophant is like ripe for that level of complexity, because like you say, it's so pickled with people's personal associations. Because like the first time I like leafed through Smith-Waite Tarot deck, I saw that and I was just like, well, fuck, how am I supposed to have any kind of interaction with like the Pope in like what am I doing with this? But in terms of the meanings, the symbolism in the card, but then like the history of that role and stuff, like it's so ripe for there being so much, and it just depends like what people's personal associations are. But unfortunately, because so many people have such unfortunate associations with the church particularly, so not even religion broadly, but the church specifically, I think it's really easy for people to just be like, bleh. I feel that a little bit about the Emperor as well, you know, given the world that we live in. It's quite hard to not just reflexively go, I don't want anything to do with any of that at all.
Yeah, which I obviously totally get.
But it's just taking that time and going, okay, so if we can just gently put that to one side and go, but what can we connect with on this level? What is useful? So I know that you've talked in videos certainly about like the Emperor being about like boundaries to you and like so structure and then the fours and the stability of all that. And I think you talking about that, and that could be like quite a long time ago in a video, but like that helped me unpick like another kind of bit of the Emperor. And I think the Hierophant definitely has that in the deck that I use for professional readings, the Tarot of the Divine. The Hierophant is White Buffalo Woman, which is a Native American, so it's all folklore, myths and legends from around the world, and it's a Native American, forgive me, I can't remember the specifics, but it's a story from Native North Americans, and it's this idea of like kind of inherited wisdom, and so information is like passed down. And so I think of it as being like the opposite of not the opposite, but the pairing of the High Priestess, where it's the information that comes from within, and then it's the information that comes from without. And so it's that, you know, they kind of meet in the middle with the person. And I think that has also helped me kind of unpick the Catholic, like really like specific nature of it.
Yeah.
And it's why there is a benefit in having multiple tarot readers and multiple tarot decks, is that we can just tease out these things. But yeah, I've been surprised that the Hierophant's not come up before, because I mean, people understandably and rightfully have difficulties with these sorts of archetypes, but like you say, there's a lot in there to be, you know, talked about learning and education and community and like you say about gates that need kept, and that not all information is for everyone immediately, I suppose, is the thing.
Even going back to what we were saying about like exams in school, and when you're 10 you learn a very basic thing. It's like, well, because you can't teach a 10-year-old like particle physics. They need to like
fucking try, but how else is it gonna go?
Not easily, not in like one half an hour lesson on the random Tuesday. Like you do need to go through, and like I know that there's a lot of rightfully so, there's a lot of think about academia, a lot of conversation about how inaccessible it is, and that is often true, but I don't think the real issue is in things like, again, I'm defending language and terminology, because I'm like, but those words mean specific things, and that's not, it shouldn't be a tool of inaccessibility. It's not a tool to keep people out, it's just that you have to kind of build up your knowledge to get to that point where it makes sense to you. Because if I don't know particle physics, you know, if some, or like I remember when I was doing an essay in uni and I had to read some genomics papers on DNA for some bone that someone found, and I had to basically take myself through like a really basic crash course of like, what the fuck do all these words mean, because I've never done gene biology, like I was doing something completely different. So I had to like very quickly work my way up to that level, because if those papers hadn't used those technical terms, they just simply wouldn't have made sense. So like I had to kind of go through that almost initiation in order for that paper to actually get its meaning across to
100%. And it's like if that paper hadn't used the technical words, and I think there is a difference between technical language and jargon. I think
Yes,
jargon
100%.
is intentionally kind of obfuscating. That's me using a
Not too many syllables, Imogen.
that is intentionally obscuring things, but then technical language, I think, so the paper, even if it had used different language, it's still trying to convey a higher level concept. So
Yeah.
truthfully, by swapping out the language, it would probably quadruple the length of the paper because you'd have to use 10 words for every one, and it would get way fuzzier. And so that's where the technical language versus jargon thing happens, is the technical language zooms in on the point and means that you use exactly the correct word and no words extra, rather than just throwing in random words a la Boris Johnson, kind of unnecessarily chucking in an extra thing just so that you look a bit clever. You know, it's like, British
Exactly.
references that will make no sense to anyone. But like, it just, it's I think that it is interesting that that comes back, because I was thinking exactly that about because the thing with trying to teach a primary school education as well is that you're trying to teach science and maths and, you know, English and PE and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
All to a level, and so you could probably teach a 10-year-old particle physics, but that would be the only thing you could teach them. And like, you'd have to zoom, like, even just, I remember doing history when I was like 16, so doing my GCSEs in history, and we did a year on the history of medicine, all of the history of medicine in a year. So that's from like fucking all the way back to like trepanning in the,
like the humours and
exactly, so all the way back up to kind of like just about sort of 20th century kind of things. And then the following year we did a thing on castles, so you've got history that is like this deep but this long, so you've got all of the history. Or you do something like we did the Wild West for however many months, which is like this long, but then you cover it in much greater depth, and that is your choice. And when you're teaching kids like needing to cover all of the bases, then you only do it at this depth. But then as you go up through the education system, you shrink the breadth and you increase the depth, and that's and then you get up to, you know, doing your masters on something that is really quite niche but has great
deeply
depth.
niche. There were no paper. I really didn't set myself up for success. I mean, I did well, but nobody had really done what I was trying to do.
Trailblazer.
So I would love to do a PhD on it, but it would kill me. But no, I remember when we first started in our undergrad, and like what you were saying about like in primary school, you're doing really broad but really shallow, and then you end up going to a point where like you do in primary school, you know nothing about everything, and then if you end up doing a PhD, you end up knowing everything about essentially nothing, because you're spending 4 years on one really niche little topic that only you are the expert in, because you're the only one who has studied it to that level in like a lot of cases. And we need that in order, especially like thinking about like science, it's like you need somebody to go really niche on something really specific, because that's how we make progress in like a broader sense. And that's not for the purpose of like gatekeeping, it's just that some things are a long path to get there.
And not everyone has the inclination.
Exactly.
You know? And like, there's a reason that you're the only person that did what you did. It's because not very many people have the inclination to do so.
No, nobody else really cares. And I honestly can't blame them.
It's just that we need the people to do those things, and then the web of the stuff that kind of joins that all up, and then it trickles down into the bits that are more relevant for more people. Those people can then teach, and then it goes out and it affects wider society.
It's all like context as well, I think. And not to get like too deep into it all, but I've seen a concerning amount of like anti-intellectual vibes on the internet over the last few years, and probably longer, that I'm like, no, you need people doing like the really weird niche stuff that nobody else understands, because then that provides the background context for like you say, the stuff that is more relevant to more people. I don't know, I'm never gonna believe that having less information is a good thing.
Definitely.
And I've slightly gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but
I mean, it's all relevant to the Hierophant and that idea of learning, and I suppose it's that tarot being full of these kind of partnerships and linking and stuff. So you've got like the Hermit being kind of removing yourself to go and do and studying, but then the Hierophant is more about kind of education within community, I suppose, in that way.
yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm with you in terms of kind of team science and information, and particularly in an era such as the one in which we live, where disinformation and misinformation is so rife that people pursuing information and learning is so critical, and people developing critical thinking skills and being able to, but also just like the breadth of the human experience, and like different people are interested in different things, and so they can pursue it in different ways. Like I remember having an argument with someone during sixth form that he didn't know who Neil Armstrong was, and he said that was on par with the fact that I couldn't name all the members of the Shadow Cabinet, and we were then having an argument about which was more relevant. And my point that knowing who Neil Armstrong was and the relevance of space exploration and stuff was the fact that my friend had used a microwave this morning, and the computing power and all of these things that came from people trying to get to space trickled down into all of these things that impact us on a day-to-day basis. Also, Neil Armstrong will always be the guy that first stepped onto the moon. The Shadow Cabinet changes all the fucking time. And then he was saying that but the Shadow Cabinet has more to do with the day in, day out whatever of my life now, and I disagreed. But it's that thing of, there are some people that will follow those sorts of avenues, and then there are other people that will try and go to the fucking moon, and then we'll all be able to microwave our porridge. And then people that talk about why do we waste money on NASA or scientific research and gaining more information? You just go, well, we can't know actually what benefits it will have, because they're always a million degrees removed. But everything that makes our lives easier now was because of people doing weird science shit at some point.
100%.
That potentially was deeply harmful, but we've still ended up with the lives that we have because of it, and that was through people with access to higher education and funding and all of that stuff that is within the Hierophant's remit.
Yeah.
Tucking it back to tarot, honestly, it's the fact that I started talking about Neil Armstrong was relevant, I promise.
It's absolutely relevant. Actually, one of my favourite depictions of the Hierophant is, I think it's in the Fifth Spirit Tarot, where it's a librarian.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that I enjoy. I mean, I love anything Charlie just comes out with, but I like that librarian kind of figure.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of
for
sense.
me, to actually return to your original question, to me, the Hierophant is not at all about spirituality, which I know for a lot of people, that's a key word because of that religion connection. But in my head, it's divorced from the actual spirituality, and I think more about the organized religion community aspect within the Hierophant rather than the actual spiritual belief system. And maybe that's because I have no spiritual belief system to speak of, but
well, certainly I think I was just thinking that so anything that I have that's close to some sort of spiritual belief system, it doesn't come from some guy in a chair. So that would, my reading of the Hierophant would never have anything to do with spirituality. Maybe the High Priestess, maybe, I don't know, things fucking even the Wheel of Fortune would probably be more closely aligned with my sort of fucking shit happens.
Shit happens.
It's like that.
And it continues to happen.
Yeah, there's the cycles of things, that's closer to me than some guy in a funny hat.
Yeah.
But I think, what he represents in terms of where that figure comes up in 2025, for good or for ill, the librarian being, someone that helps you find the information that you need, or your man in the funny hat. But that is relevant to our lives in a way that the more religious, spiritual man figure is less relevant, I think, for most people. And there will be some people for whom that is totally relevant and part of their lives, but just not for you or for me.
No, not for me either.
Yeah, so it's it's really funny, I find myself censoring my language even given the context of the conversation, but I quite like the little Japanese novellas that are sort of like little stories kind of all put together but all in like one place. So there's like one that's set in a coffee shop that's really famous called Before the Coffee Gets Cold. There's one that's like in a restaurant, but there's one that I read last year called What You're Looking For Is in the Library, and essentially it's a magical librarian and she knows what you need better than you do, and I'm imagining her now as the Hierophant and how lovely that would be. And she's got a bit of a sweet tooth, so like you take her a little snack and then she's sitting there needle felting at her desk, and then you ask her for the books you need and then she'll add like an extra one to your list and it'll be exactly the book that you need to like solve whatever problem it is that you're dealing with in your life. And I'm like, that's it, absolutely.
That's so good. I have to read this book now, and
it's very cute. It's like my little kind of palette cleansers between different books. They're always like, I don't know, 230 pages or something, and they're just like little vignettes of...
Yeah.
Often they're kind of a little bit poignant, but not like too sad or too anything, and often there's really good food descriptions, which is what I like in a book.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there.
Yeah. Just give me... I read one the other day called The Restaurant of Lost Recipes or something, and I'd say a good 60% of the word count is just descriptions of food. Just reading like shopping lists, essentially, going, that sounds amazing. I love that. Oh my god. Not if you're reading it before you go to bed and you're hungry. So you need to have had like a decent sized dinner before you read it, because otherwise I'm just like, no, I'm hungry.
Midnight snack.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's probably all the questions, and I have had you here for a really long time, and I'm very, very grateful.
Oh my god.
Given that we were 20 minutes late starting, bless you for being on this for as long as you have.
I did not know that it was 5 o'clock.
No, so it is probably...
I can talk for days.
I love it. I've had a fantastic time. It's lovely to get to just chat to you in general, really.
Always.
Do you have any sign-off places to find you? Everything will be linked below and in cards and any way that I can.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube. I've got my Patreon. If the nerdy dissecting frameworks, deconstructing, reconstructing, if that appeals to anybody, I think you'd like the Tarot Lab, which I run over on Patreon. But otherwise, yeah, Instagram, YouTube, all the usual social media places.
I can also sign up on your Patreon. It's like some of the best money I spend every month. It's fantastic.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
I've been having so much fun. The Tarot Lab has brought me so much joy. Just like making that, and I love it so much.
It's like one of the few things that I like really set aside time to like go through, because you make like such like delicious resources and stuff. I actually like sit through, and I've been like making my little kind of scrapbook of all of them, and I sit through them.
Oh, I love that.
It's like such a kind of like soothing and smoothing thing for my brain. Of like, if I'm just feeling a bit rattled, a bit strung out, I just go, do you know what? I haven't looked at Sylvie's resources for this month. I'm going to go and like do some cutting and sticking, and I'm going to read through them, and I'm going to have a bit of a play, and it's very good. I can highly recommend.
Thank you so much. We're doing court cards in July. I've been writing things up. Court cards and personality tests.
Yes, that's amazing. I mean, I think I'm probably going to... I have one of these that's going up in July, one that I need to edit to go up in August, so this will probably be going up a couple of weeks before your birthday, so all the court card stuff, by the time this goes up, all the court card stuff will already be there, ready and waiting for people.
It'll already be.
Mystery August and September things will already...
Truly no idea what will be happening in September.
It's a long way away.
A million years away.
Yeah, but there will be all sorts of delicious resources ready and waiting for people. And it will be a year of your Patreon in September?
Yes! September will be a year.
Very
That's
cool.
Wild.
So maybe we could do like timings in the tarot, like, because some people believe that you can read.
Yeah, that's it. I have a million lists of ideas, obviously, and that's definitely in there somewhere. Is like, that could be fun.
It's something I've had people ask me at markets of like, can you give me kind of a time frame for this? And me just going, so I just go, if it's a lot of wands, it's going to happen quickly. If it's a lot of pentacles, that could be slower. Beyond that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good shout. And yeah, a good one for my like 1 year on Patreon moment. And also my birthday month. Yeah, I think it's got to be timings. Excellent.
Amazing. Wow, very exciting. I'm going to stop. Well, no, I'm going to say thank you very much for being here and for...
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been really lovely, and I am going to press stop.
Oh my gosh, what a treat, what a pleasure, what a babe. I hope you enjoyed our very long conversation. I promise this was as edited as I could reasonably do it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're taking really good care of yourself, and I will catch you in the next one.